Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we are continuing on with the Aeneid with Jade from About a Book podcast.
You can't get rid of me. Back again.
As you should be, honestly. I told you, we are About a Bookish podcast, basically.
Basically.
I think that's our sweet life of Hannah Montana
Crossover.
name. Yeah. This crossover episode will continue until we run out of Greek mythology.
We're getting near the end. I mean, we've done like the main text.
Suddenly
maybe
we're gonna
Dante's Inferno next. Who knows?
Yeah. We'll have to bring out Edith Hamilton's mythology book, and we're just gonna go through the whole thing. It's gonna be great. This is gonna become a Greek mythology podcast if we continue on with this pretty soon.
Yeah.
So we are on with book 5, Games in Conflagration. I hope that's how you pronounce that word. I'm guessing,
yeah.
So Aeneas can literally see the fire of Dido from his ship, and he's just like, oh,
that sucks.
Yeah, he's like, a fire, weird. Anyways, and I'm like, dude. So immediately, as soon as they pull out of port, like the weather is horrible. They're like, Neptune has cursed us. Zeus has cursed us.
As he should.
Yeah. I'm like, you literally just like made this woman fall in love with you, and then was like, okay, bye. Have fun. Be good. Like, what? Trash. Like, I almost feel like he's more of a trash bag than Odysseus.
I think so. And they're trying so hard to make him better than Odysseus.
Mm-hmm.
But Odysseus didn't, obviously he broke Calypso's heart when he has to leave the island after 10 years.
Yeah.
But nothing as dramatic as this.
Yeah, because like literally he had like weeks and he made her fall in love with him. And I was like, okay.
Well, the gods kind of did, but like, yeah,
but
I'm still doing
an active part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's just an F boy. Like, he's like sleeping around and then making people fall in love. And then he's like, okay, that was enough of that. Bye. Like, no, don't like him. Not at all.
No.
So, then apparently they get onto another shore, but like they weren't very clear about this. But suddenly,
yeah, they do.
Yeah, like I was not sure what happened. Like, there's just like a passage of time that seemed to have changed, and then they're like, all right, we're doing some games.
Yeah, so they arrived to this new island and they're like welcome there, and then it's been a year since Aeneas's father's died, so they kind of do these like anniversary funeral games, which reminded me of Ireland, because in Ireland our funerals last for 3 days, and they would have games, and well, not nowadays, but back in the 19th century they'd have like games and like matchmaking and special food, and it'd be like a huge party, loads of drinking, and it kind of reminded me of this.
But honestly, I like that idea better than like the traditional memorial service. Like, I like celebration of lives better than like we all go to the funeral home and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds fake, but like back then in like the 18th, 19th century, everyone drank poitín, and poitín is kind of like Irish moonshine. It was a very strong alcohol that could make you go blind and deaf. And so when people drank this, they might be knocked out for a few days. So they'd have a 3-day funeral to kind of like give the corpse a chance to wake up if they weren't really dead. And they also believed that like people could be like knocked out or put to sleep by different fairy creatures as well. So the 3-day funeral was a chance for them to wake up, basically. That's why it's called a wake, for that reason.
That's funny. I mean, it's like it's wild, but it's like, think about how they used to tie bells to people's wrist just in case.
Creepy.
That's horrifying. Could you imagine waking up? Oh no.
No. That's why cremation, because at least like you're burned alive and that's it. It's better than just like the panic of waking up in a coffin.
Yeah. Oh no.
Anyway, grim stuff. These funeral games, it's mostly horseback riding and races. Good thing Odysseus isn't here, because he was known to be, the fastest runner with his little short legs.
Yeah, and they did this.
Don't know how Aeneas compared to him, but
It didn't seem like he participated at all.
yeah, maybe that was kind of like me and PE. You know what I mean? You kind of just cheer on from the sidelines, and watch other people get all sweaty.
Yeah, same. And when they're like, you need to run the mile, I'd be like, I'm gonna walk this mile. Because I had PE first period. So it's like,
Sweaty for the whole day.
yeah, they don't let you shower, they don't let you do anything. So you just like you just stink all day. Like that's terrible, honestly. Like, who decided that was a good idea?
Did people in America ever have to do the bleep test? I don't know if it's just a UK and Ireland thing.
No, I didn't
It'd
have to
be
do
a
that.
machine. Basically, you'd be in the hall and you'd have to run from one side of the hall to the other.
Mhm.
And you had to get to the other side before the machine beeped. And every round it would get quicker and quicker.
Oh my goodness.
And it was to test like your stamina. And it used to be horrible. And it used to be so embarrassing as well. And if you didn't reach it, you were like knocked out of the game.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, it was horrible.
No, no,
It was
thank
like
you.
traumatizing.
No, I literally RPE was a joke. They would be like, okay, do your mile. Okay, good job. And I was like, cool. And then they'd walk. The PE teacher always had like um a golf cart, and they'd like
Mhm.
fall behind you and they'd be like, all right, go faster, you gotta run. And I'm like, no, simply I will not.
In a golf cart, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's like a running joke that every PE teacher has a
Ha,
golf cart.
running joke.
Did I yeah, like in America, every PE teacher seems to have a golf cart. Don't know why.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just a thing they have, and then who knows?
Well, I feel like in this scene, Aeneas is like the PE teacher with the golf cart when he's watching everybody else play these games.
Truly, truly love that segue.
Yeah, but the whole point of these games too was to show like how respectful and pious he was. Like, he's doing the right
Mhm.
thing. He's doing these funeral honorary things. And it's also kind of reinforcing that like father and son theme, which is
Mhm.
like very common. It was like very common in the Odyssey as well.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of trying to mirror the Odyssey in that way as well.
Mhm. Mhm. And for some reason, this last 9 days, and then after the 9 days, the sky's clear. They also like ruined a couple of ships a little bit in their ship racing.
Mhm.
Like that seemed like a bad idea to me, but
Counterintuitive, yeah.
So then they had Neptune pick the winner by basically sinking the other ships. And then one of the ships ends up hitting a reef. And then they like just trash all these boats. They lose all the oars. And then like they go through the list of all the prizes everyone gets, and I truly was just like, this is too much. Like it was a participation trophy. Every single person got a prize. Like it seems like Aeneas keeps like his entire wealth on his own ship to then give out to people throughout his like trip.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like he has so much random stuff. Like why would you keep all this stuff?
Glory and fame, basically.
Apparently.
But I was reading actually about the history of like participation prizes.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently I can't remember now what decade it was. I think it was around the 60s, 70s, 80s, around sometime around then.
Mm-hmm.
They basically, the thought of society was that if they made everybody feel special and talented,
Mm-hmm.
then people would work harder and achieve higher. So they
Mm-hmm.
began to give out participation prizes and kind of like, bonuses to everybody, make everybody feel like they're really smart and really talented. And they thought that would like make people be more successful, but it didn't
Mm-hmm.
work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, honestly, I know people get mad for participation trophies, but like if they're kids, who cares? Like
Yeah.
I see a lot of the like sport parents are like, oh, my 4-year-old got a participation. Like, yeah, they're 4. They're not going to the Ivy Leagues. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, like if I was doing a race and I trained really hard for the race, like I wouldn't mind getting like a little medal or something, just
Mhm.
like as a personal achievement that I participated in that. I wouldn't see it as like stupid.
Yeah. When I did one of those like Disney 5Ks a long time ago, I got like a 5K medal. And it's
Mhm.
like, I know people are like, participate. And I'm like, I walked it. I walked it. May have not come in first, but I completed it. So
Yeah,
therefore I won because,
it's a memento of that day.
yeah. So I'm a fan, but like maybe not in like business settings. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
we can probably stop that when we're adults.
yeah. But that's basically what this was like because everybody won a prize.
Yeah. So then Iris pops by for a minute, watches all the festivities. And then she's like, hey, ladies, what if we just set fire to all the ships? Hmm?
I love Iris. She's Juno's messenger god, so she's kind of like the Hermes in this book,
Mm-hmm.
and she's also like very associated with the rainbow. And
Mm-hmm.
she was the one that brought Dido's like spirit. What did she do again? She took Dido's spirit out of her body or something like that. What was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like her. I liked her in Percy Jackson too. Like I think she was always good in Percy Jackson, to be honest. But like I like that she had phone. Basically, she was a phone call.
Um, I'm reading the third Percy Jackson book at the moment. I just started it yesterday, but I was actually making a reel about like I recorded it today, but I haven't put it up yet. But it's about how bad the Percy Jackson movie was compared to the books.
Oh my God. Yes, Percy Jackson movies are trash. Everybody universally agrees that they are absolute trash. I
Yeah,
can't wait for the TV show to come out though.
that's gonna be great. And
Yeah.
Rick Riordan, is that his name? Riordan? Riordan? I don't Riordan.
It's I think it's Riordan.
Riordan, yeah, Rick
I don't
Riordan,
know.
yeah. But he has actually done a master's in Irish folklore from University College Cork, and he's coming out and he's done like a thesis. He spent 2 months, 2 weeks in the Gaeltacht, which is like an area of Ireland that only speaks Irish, and
Mhm.
he's planning a whole series on Irish folklore and mythology, which I'm like Celtic stuff, which I'm really excited for.
When that comes out, we're going to be talking about that. I can tell you right
Definitely.
now. It might be for Patreon or something. I have no idea, but it's going to be there because,
Definitely.
oh, dude,
Celtic mythology is my jam.
yes, I love his work. Also, this is a brief moment to say if you want to listen to these stories in depth, listen to the newest Olympian podcast. It is my favorite. It's by the same guy who did the Potterless podcast. So check that out because it is delightful. But yeah, I really like those. I didn't read them though until I was like in college.
Yeah, I'm only reading them now.
Yeah, I think I read them 2 3 years ago and they're very good. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, so apparently the ladies immediately know that Iris is a goddess and it's not the person she's pretending, because she's like, she's literally laid in bed sick. I just saw her like 30 seconds ago. So
The gods and their bad disguises
literally
strike again.
my favorite like thing. And then like the funniest thing to me though is that like the women are like, actually, that doesn't sound like a terrible idea, and then just go and do it anyways.
As they should, as they should.
Yeah. Because like listen, they've been stuck on this boat forever. Like it's been years at this point. They just want to settle somewhere and they're like, this place is good enough.
Yeah.
And then they're like, let's just not go to Rome. Like, what if we just hang out here? Like, because you got to think about it. Most of them are probably trying to start families. Like, could you imagine raising a child on a boat? That sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. That sounds terrible.
Where are these women that are on Aeneas's boat?
Yes.
So he had girls on his boat too. Okay, I thought he
I
only had
guess,
dudes on his boat.
well, it sounds like he has like families. Like he took as many people from Troy as he could.
Well, if you're trying to start a new city,
Yeah, you can't just be like, all right, men.
Yeah.
gentleman.
Repopulate this city on your own.
Yeah. He's like, all right, we'll find wives somewhere along this journey. Because it's like he tried to bring his own wife, but his wife died, and then I guess his son died too, which I didn't realize. I didn't. I thought. Listen, I thought the grandpappy and the son made it out of there, but then like in the next chapter, they're like, no, and I was like, ew.
Disclaimer for the readers: we're not brain dead. It's like this book is very easy to mix bits and pieces because of the way it's written. It's a tough text, and that's why we're making a podcast about it, because we're trying to make sense of it.
Yes. Like we'll probably miss stuff.
And I have to say as well, this is my second time reading it. So, and I'm still confused, you know?
Yeah. I want Emily Wilson to go through and get this one done because I need someone that's a little bit easier to read, to be honest. I want this told to me like I am a first grader and this is reading time. You know,
that's basically what it was like in school. Like the bits I know about this book is because I remember it from school, not because, you know, I picked it up while reading. Because, you know,
that's fair. Because it's a struggle. It's definitely a struggle. So, some guy then advises Aeneas to like leave some people here so that they can build a settlement, and then the rest can go on to Rome. And I thought he was going to do this, but it sounds like he's like, nah, dog, we're all going to Rome. Like, that seems like a great idea. I don't understand.
I don't
know. Like, it makes everyone happy. Like, again, this, as you mentioned, this is basically just like text that it's just supposed to like hype this guy up, you know?
Yeah, pure propaganda.
Yeah, it's like he isn't logical. He's not a good leader. Like he's like Odysseus at least seemed to like lead his people. This guy seems to just be like led. The gods just tell him to jump and he asks them how high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if this guy, like Odysseus needed to be held, like his hand to be held a lot. But this guy, the gods are constantly holding his hand. And they're like, okay, Aeneas, let's, you know, go over here. And he's like, okay. La, 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 la,
la. Yeah.
It's the point where he couldn't even pick the winner himself. He's like, Neptune, how about you pick the winner? Like, what?
So that's like we were saying in the last episode. We're like, if the gods could actually reply and help us, we'd be incapable of making any of our own decisions because we just want them to make all our decisions. And I feel like that's what's happened to Aeneas now.
Yeah, literally. He's just like incapable. Like Odysseus got left behind by the gods for a little bit and he like made his own way, you know, figured some stuff out. I think if Aeneas was left alone to his own devices, he would just kind of like fall over and be like, help. Like, I don't think he's capable. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll grow to like him later, but right now I'm just like, no.
Doesn't get better.
Oh no. So they set sail again because of course they do. Like Sicily would have been fine. I don't know why they have to go to Rome. I really don't. And then like the other thing that bothers me is throughout this entire novel, they're calling the Romans that live there right now savages. And it reminds me a lot of what the tech like people when they describe the indigenous people of America in other countries, like they're like, oh, they need to be conquered. And I'm like, do they when they have their own land and ways and everything? Like this to me is very like colonist. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's basically about them colonizing Rome. So yeah, it's a pro-colonization text. So
I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah. But you have to remember, like, it's not their bad because back then, like conquering somewhere was like all the glory and the praiseworthy of the gods. So
I still hate it.
They don't really have the same scope that we even now. But you see, that's like something that I'm a bit like iffy about, like when people do like retellings of myths and they try to make them like very feminist or very kind of like the story but with today's like morals and stuff. I'm like, that's kind of like twisting the story a bit too much. And I mean, like things were that way back then for reasons, you know. Like, yeah, like have you read Ariadne?
Not yet.
I haven't read it yet, but apparently it's like very like feminist in like a way that kind of like changes this like the story, and like it kind of like takes the essence of the story out, if you get me.
Mm-hmm.
When you try to change too much, like imagine if someone tried to tell the story but made it like not pro-colonialism, it would just take away the whole like thing of the story, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because there's like, then they're just like, oh, we happened into Rome, la 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 la, like
Yeah,
they
like
just gave us this
Cersei's
place.
really good because they're
Mm-hmm.
making Cersei, Madeline Miller made Cersei like a powerful female character, so like yeah, that was a good way to kind of incorporate the feminism into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like when you try to like, oh, giving the women of Troy a voice, like that's all great, but then when it actually like changes, like when it in the story,
Mm-hmm.
like it just it just
To me, that's
like
why. Oh, sorry.
like in Song of Achilles, when Achilles is like the only dude who didn't like rape and kill the women, you know what I mean? It was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's unlikely. If he was actually that great of a soldier, he'd be like the ringleader of all that stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I feel like I like reimaginings more than retellings, because that's like I already know the original, but like
Yeah,
if you want to change something, like make it very cool, but like change it for everyone. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like I've a lot of like I just read Pride and Premeditation, the retelling,
Mm-hmm.
which is they take some parts of Pride and Prejudice, but make a whole new story. Like
Yeah,
some things are hit, but not the whole thing. And it's like, I like that type of stuff. Whereas like, I don't want to know exactly what's going to happen to these characters, you
yeah.
know?
And like sometimes people are like reviewing books or discussing books, and they're giving it about how like they might have something that we don't really agree with today, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
whether it be like how they talk about certain groups or whatever. And it's like you have to think of like back then, like the author and the world they lived in was so different than now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That like that can't really be put against them, if you get me.
Yeah. But I'm all
Yeah.
for roasting the authors though.
Oh,
Yes.
definitely.
Love
Definitely. Yeah.
that. Love that. The amount of like author roasting that's going to come into this, because Virgil just seems like an absolute trash bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to get
I
a
feel
lot of
like
that.
I feel like Virgil was literally like writing this book like right on the deadline. And that's because it seems like very rushed or something, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But then
And it's,
also not rushed because there's just like big blocks of text that could have been taken out. But
yeah.
like the amount of like detail and like the amount of like just sense that the Odyssey made compared to this, where it just doesn't make any
Mm-hmm.
sense. And it's just like,
Well, it's
yeah.
like he name drops, what's his name? Oh, he name drops, what's his, it starts with an H. The guy that was like really big in Troy.
Hephaestus?
No. Hector. They name drop
Hector.
Hector all
Oh,
the
yeah.
time. Like
I
he's
can never
like,
remember who Hephaestus is.
they're like, oh, him, he was like the driver for Hector, and him, he also fought alongside Hector. I'm like, yeah, buddy, you were in the Trojan War. Everyone fought alongside Hector. What? Like, and it's like Virgil just is like, I feel like he's trying way too hard. And like you said, he gives detail to a lot of things that just don't matter. You
Yeah.
know, like with him trying to like hype up Aeneas, he's like really just sacrificing the entire plot of this book. Like this book is like, oh, cool. So they all have money because Aeneas has a whole lot of money. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. But as anyways, they set sail again. Someone named Salminus comes down from Olympus, throws the helmsman off the boat, and then just has them like setting up course to hit the sirens. And then that's completely thrown out. Like he leaves this cool cliffhanger. You're like, oh my gosh, you're gonna go defeat some sirens. And then the next book, they're like, just kidding.
I know.
Forget that plot. Like
Every time you think this book is getting interesting, it just
yeah,
diverts.
I know. And it's like everything, it's like he's basically building up all these characters, which is not something I care about. It's like you want to know about like the cool places they visit. Like that's the entire reason you read a story like this. Like I got to in the Odyssey, I learned about, The Cyclops I learned about, like the Lotus Eaters, everything. Like Circe was really cool, Calypso's island, all that cool stuff. But this one's like really like divulging into everybody that's on this ship. And the second we're like, oh, we're gonna hear about some sirens, right? And they're like, no, you aren't.
Yeah.
But they're there, and you're like, cool. Like, I kind of want to go and do a step-by-step view of the Odyssey versus this, because it's like, I feel like the Odyssey, he's hitting it in the same order. Like, Virgil is very much like, oh, so first you go see Scylla, and then you go to Calypso's island. So we're going to go see Scylla, and then we're going to go to Diodo's island.
Like, what I want to know is, right, so after the Trojan War,
Mm-hmm.
Odysseus was trying to go to Ithaca and he was trying to go to Rome. Like, if I'm surprised they didn't overlap at any point. You know what I mean?
Right?
They're hitting all the same islands and stuff, and it's around the same time period. I
Mm-hmm.
presume, since it's after the war.
Yeah.
I suppose like he was stuck on like Calypso's island for like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like how many years? 6 years, something, I can't remember. So maybe that's the reason why. But he could have had Odysseus in here for a little cameo. You never know.
Yeah.
That would have been
Right?
interesting.
I
Yeah.
know. It's so weird because it's
Or like, or you know, or he lands somewhere and they're like, oh, Odysseus was just here. Like, you're so much better than him. He was terrible. He could have put something funny in like that, but he didn't.
I know. Virgil is really out here missing every opportunity constantly.
Mm-hmm. You know, the way in the last episode we were saying how Virgil actually wanted this to be burned on his deathbed because he wasn't happy with it. I wish they had listened to his wishes, to be honest.
I know. It's not good.
Like, as I said, the only reason this text has survived for so long is because, you know, Christian leaders thought that this was backing up the birth of Christ. So if it wasn't for that, maybe this would have been lost time, because there's so much like better Greek texts out there and like Roman texts out there than this. But
I just want to read like I want to know something that was lost to time but was still better than this, and then I'm gonna be like, why? So yeah, so they throw the helmsman off, see the sirens, and then we're on to the next chapter. So then we're on to book 6, The World Below. Obviously
this is a good book, I think.
Yeah, I think this was the most interesting, but still it was bogged down with like random prophecies. You know what I mean?
Well, this is the big hitter, you see. So I suppose we'll talk about the chapter and talk about when it comes to it. But this is the most propaganda heavy chapter, and this is the chapter that relates the closest to the Odyssey, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. So they end up on land again. They didn't really immediately say that it's the end of the world, but they like go to Apollo's temple, and then like they have this lady, I think they said Diana. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. But apparently Apollo's there. This prophet Diana's there.
Oh, Sybil.
Sorry.
Sybil. Yeah, Sybil. Yeah, she's a priestess of Apollo, and she can also tell the future. So he's talking to Sybil. He'll say, oh, Sybil, if you help us get to the underworld, we'll build you a nice new temple. And she's like, oh, okay, like buttering me up. Sounds like a good deal. Okay, Aeneas, the way you can get to the underworld is if you get the golden bough from the forest. So off you go. And then luckily, because Aeneas is a demigod, his mother is Venus. So Venus, she sends 2 doves, which are like her companions, and they lead him to this golden branch that's on the tree. Pretty handy. And easily enough, you know, he just snaps off the branch. And that's kind of the end of it. I thought there'd be something more exciting, like he had to like literally forge this special kind of like sword or axe, or you know, he had to prove he was mighty enough to grab it. But no, you know, there's just this gold branch. He just plucks it like any other branch, and he brings it into this cave, and that's what leads him into the underworld. And to be honest, for my leaving cert, so for the Irish version of the what do you call them, SATs?
Yeah, SATs, ACTs.
Yeah. For the exam, we had to compare the Odyssey to the Aeneid, and as you can guess, there's no comparison. The Odyssey is just so much better. Like to get to the underworld, Odysseus was way more badass. He had to like slit the throat of like a what was it, a black goat, wasn't it, a goat or
Hmm.
something like that, and then the blood had to drain into this big trench, and then all the spirits came out and they're drinking up the blood. This, he just, it's like almost like a torch, he just like lets this gold branch guide him into this cave.
Well, it's like you
Which
think
is,
just Hades lets anybody wander through? Like,
yeah, I don't like, maybe the whole reason people don't go is because they don't know like they need the golden branch to get there. But I wish there was more of an obstacle or something.
mhm.
This is what we mean. He's kind of missing out on opportunities to be interesting here, you know?
Yeah, it's like it feels like his cover fee to go into his house is like $1. He's like, okay, pay the dollar, you can come in, go out. You know, this is really your world. So
Yeah,
whatever.
and if it's trying to be like the Odyssey, would it not make like sense, like continuity wise, that the way into the underworld was to do the thing Odysseus did?
Right?
Or maybe every person has to do a different task to get in. I'm not too sure.
I feel like Aeneas is literally playing on easy mode, you
He
know?
definitely is. He definitely is. And like, Virgil's trying to prove that he's the most mighty. Like, oh, Odysseus can go to the underworld. Yeah, Aeneas can too. Oh, Odysseus had to like, cut the throat of a goat and build this big trench. Oh yeah, Aeneas could just walk right in. It's just like,
Mhm.
you're
Yeah,
not
dude.
cool. You're not cool.
It's like the reason I don't like Superman. Like when you
Yeah,
make
he just gets
everything,
it too easy.
yeah, I don't like it. It's boring. And
Yeah.
this book very much feels like a first draft. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know how the book was obtained, but it very much could be like a
Mhm.
draft. Like,
Yeah.
uh it might not necessarily be in the finished product what we have now, you
Do
know?
you imagine paying your homie all this money and then like he makes your book terrible?
Yeah.
Like, I'd be so mad.
I know. I haven't looked into it, but I definitely will for our next episode. But it's like I wonder how this book was received. Are people
Yeah.
buying into it?
Yeah. I wonder if it like changed anything about how they feel about Rome, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Imagine like the Pope got like Rick Riordan to write like a book about how Jesus wanted him to be the Pope. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. It's a bit
Yeah,
like it's a bit
literally.
weird. Like
Everyone would be like, cool. No. It's like when people like have autobiographies and then they like pay ghostwriters. You know what I mean? You're
yeah,
like, okay.
defeats the purpose. Like, why would you just not have a biography? Yeah.
Yeah, right. They're like, I totally wrote this. And you're like, did you?
Yeah.
Did you truly? And it's like no shame to the game of ghostwriters. I have no problem with you like getting your cash. I just think it's funny when they're like, oh, I wrote this myself.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You definitely did not do that. So then, they're trying to like find a boar. Oh, so basically they go into Hades and the underworld and they like meet a whole bunch of people. He sees Dido, he sees like so the thing is though, it's like it's only people we met on this trip, you know? Like
Mm.
whereas with
Conveniently. Yeah.
yeah, with
Whereas, like
Odysseus.
in the Odyssey, it was kind of like, oh, this is your old buddy from the war,
Hmm.
and yeah,
Like it seems like Aeneas's life started when this story started, and that's something I've never liked in books.
that's it. That's what makes him like so less believable as a character
Yeah.
because you don't know his background or anything.
Yeah.
Like at least with Odysseus, he
Hmm.
was kind of alluding to his life back in Ithaca and his wife
Hmm.
Penelope and his son and things like that. Whereas this is just totally focused on Rome, totally focused on the future. It's like, want to know more about you? What was it like having Venus as a mom? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he
Like,
doesn't mourn his family that he lost at all. You know what I mean? Like he's lost his wife, his
well, he kind of
son, and his father.
you could argue that the funeral games were like him mourning and showing respect, but his wife, he paid her dust, honestly.
Yeah. But he like doesn't cry, Odysseus cries multiple times.
Yeah, that's very true.
And it's like Aeneas is apparently too hard to cry, but it's like your whole family is gone and you are alone, my guy. Like what? So then they're like, hey, you're gonna have to sacrifice a boar for that random guy that died on the shore. And he's like, okay, so I guess like someone just died getting off the ship somehow. Um so then he said he was like talking to that guy, that his helmsman that died, and he was like, hey, they told me that no one would die on this journey. He's like, well, I didn't die at sea, I swam to Rome and then died there. So, and I'm like, so you swam for 3 days straight and died in Rome, but this boat can't seem to make it to Rome. Okay, cool. And this is like, again, where they make the savage comments, and I'm like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
So, and then he says he wasn't thrown overboard by a god, but like earlier it said he 100% was thrown overboard by a god. So I'm not really sure what that meant.
Maybe there's some grand, prophecy or social context we're missing from it. But
maybe, I don't know. So they get this giant tour of the underworld, and they're like, so that's where we keep the children that die too young. That's where we keep the mothers.
Sad.
It's like, okay, like what? Like, and who also, like, why? This is like really sad. So
yeah.
But it's like, why is he getting this whole tour? Like, he doesn't matter.
For the essay for my exams, you had to like compare the geography of the underworld in the Odyssey compared to the Aeneid. It was very interesting because they both have kind of like pros and cons to how it's like described.
I do think it's interesting the fact that like this is more of like clean cut areas for people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, it seems like the underworld in the Odyssey is everyone can kind of just go into whatever groups they want to.
Yeah. So I prefer like the geography in this book. And like you have to remember too, like people reading this, they're like, imagine someone wrote a book that was like actually what heaven is supposed to be like. Because people, the idea was like you're trying to make people believe this is real. So imagine like people are like, oh my gosh, like that's where I'm gonna go when I die. You know what I mean? Like, it was so interesting to them probably.
Yeah. The thing though that I don't like about this is with clean cut lines, like that means that parents who lost the kid can't seem to go over to the kids section. It's like, this is a room only for that. This is a room for only for this.
Yeah.
And it's like, if there's no allowing of crossfit, like I am a firm believer in a fluid afterlife. Like you can like pop in and you can be like, hey, do you want to do a potluck on like Friday? And like, because if your friend is in the Christian afterlife and you're in like in a Greek afterlife or something, like I would like there to be a little bit of travel going on because it's like, one, what if your afterlife is cooler than mine? I'm going to ask for a reassignment. Two, like I just like the idea, like I don't want to have the same problem I have now where I can't hang out with my friends because they live too far away.
It's kind of like, we're all like, the afterlife is kind of like we're all in a college and each college building is different, and like the arts building is like shitty and run down, but then the science building is like amazing and fantastic and dazzling, But then like the sports building has like the best cafe, and it's like you just kind of float in between each one, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's what ideal. I like. See, like there's that person on TikTok that's it's like a receptionist for the underworld, like does this whole skit thing. I like that underworld best. That is my favorite idea because I like the idea that like no one's wrong in their belief system.
Yeah.
Could you imagine you spend your entire life, having a firm belief system, and like you get to your afterlife and they're like, oh, actually, this is the god. It's his name is Toto. He's the god of
you never heard of him? Too bad.
Yeah.
Because you believe in him, you're going to hell.
Yeah, like could you imagine you just like spending your whole life thinking you know exactly what's up, and then like you end up and you're like, oh, we were all supposed to be following Norse paganism. I didn't read up on that. And they're gonna be like, I don't know what to tell you. Like no. So that's my little headcanon. I guess we'll find out when this podcast becomes the Afterlife podcast.
Oh god. I think like, oh, I guess we'll find out. And I was like, no, hopefully not for a long time.
No, I have a running joke that in the afterlife, if I can figure out how to podcast, I'm just gonna interview the authors. Like I'll be like,
Nice.
yeah. So if that can happen and I can do that, I don't know how that works.
I mean, people
Obviously.
in the afterlife need entertainment, and I'm sure,
Exactly.
people are saying like, oh, are the dead, like, they look on us from heaven and stuff. I'm like, they got better things to do than watch you, like, scroll on your phone for 3 hours a day.
I'm sure they pop in and they're like, oh, how are my relatives
Yeah,
doing?
and I'm sure they've got their own things to do as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'd be like reading a whole lot of books.
Because how depressing would it be if like you in the afterlife for the rest of eternity, all you have to do is like watch people living? Like that'd be so sad, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I had a dream I was dead the other night and I was like following people around. And I was like, damn, like I'm missing out on this. And I mean, they're talking about me and I was like, wasn't able to talk back to them. And I was like,
That's terrible. I hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out when we're like 105 years old and we've lived
Hopefully.
very good lives. I saw that was it Jeffrey Bezos is trying to extend human life to like 150. I'm like, I don't know if I want to be here this long. Like that sounds terrible.
No.
My bones are gonna be like snapping as I stand up. Like, no, thank you. Anyways, so
After that very grim little tour, let's get back to what we were saying about the afterlife, the underworld.
I mean, how could you not? You can't just be like, oh yeah, let's just talk about this and not relate it to our lives at all.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Barely Bookish podcast because, as we said, we barely talk about the books.
Exactly. Now you understand the tagline. So basically, he then also runs into Dido in the underworld, and she's like still mad, and he starts crying, and I'm like, yeah, dude, like he broke her heart, and then she kills herself.
Yeah, and she kind of gives him like cold shoulder, you know what I mean? Like,
as she should. But she was hanging out with her first husband, and that's fun.
Nice. That's nice because you could tell that she thoroughly loved him,
Mm-hmm. Good for her. He also doesn't see his wife, like his first wife. Is that weird?
Yeah. You see, like maybe like I'm trying to try to understand maybe. Mm-hmm. You see, Odysseus, he says that he married for love, right? Like he really loved Penelope and that's why he married her. It wasn't a marriage of convenience. But maybe Aeneas's marriage was a marriage of convenience. Maybe that was kind of the situation, like, oh, you're meeting this girl, you're gonna marry her. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas like Odysseus, he was actually like in love with his wife. Maybe Aeneas didn't really care about I feel like he didn't care about his wife. Like,
Yeah. Because like it would have been like 6 months later or something that he was trying to marry Dido.
Yeah, and like he had his father on his back when he was trying to escape a couple books back, and then his wife was just like trailing behind them. You know what I mean? Like, he could have like held her hand or something. Yeah, kind of dragged her along too. But like, if he's that great of a warrior and he's that great of a guy, he could have found a way to save them both. But, so I feel like he just didn't care about her that much.
Yeah, like I would have had my family, both my hands, everybody be holding hands as we're running away. Like,
yeah, I want to see like a character analysis of Aeneas because I feel like he really just isn't that developed.
Yeah, me
compared
too.
to Odysseus.
Someone send that to me on Instagram or Twitter, whatever. I want to see it. Send it to both of us. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I want the scholarly article about why Aeneas is a trash bag. So, then he like runs into his dad. His dad like gives him the entire outline of like what Rome's going to be like.
Yeah, this here is the propaganda. He's basically giving a description of how mighty Rome is going to be, starting with like Romulus and all this, and this big line of all the rulers, and then it's going to end with Augustus Caesar, the guy that's in power now, the guy that's commissioned this book. So this is basically just to show that like it's a very long-winded way with saying that like it's always been destined that Augustus Caesar would take over and rule. Because obviously, remember I said in the first recording, people were not very happy with Augustus Caesar at all. So this is kind of trying to win them over.
I thought Aeneas paid for this book. I didn't realize Augustus Caesar paid for this book. So Aeneas is like his great grandfather, something like that.
Wait, what do you mean Aeneas paid for the book?
I thought Aeneas paid Virgil for this book.
Aeneas isn't real.
What?
Augustus Caesar, who was in power in Rome at the time, he was a very unpopular ruler. And so to convert his people, he commissioned Virgil to write this book about how he was the rightful owner. Because when Augustus Caesar came to power, he kicked out the people before, kind of like anti-democracy as far as I can remember. And maybe not anti-democracy, but he basically like changed the whole political system, and people were very unhappy about it. And it was a time of horrible political unrest in Rome. And so in a panic, he commissioned this book off Virgil, his author friend, and he told him to write a book about how he was the rightful ruler of Rome and to try and make him seem good.
Okay, so basically
Aeneas was, I think he was mentioned in the Iliad, so he was a character, but he wasn't a historical figure per se.
So he basically is supposed to like symbolize Caesar then?
You see, he's supposed to be Caesar's like distant relative.
Okay. This whole time I thought Aeneas was the one who was like the real guy commissioned this book, and I was like, how do you know all this stuff in this moment? I was like, how do you know all this stuff about who's going to do it? Wow, weird. That's funny. Okay. All right, never mind. Still Aeneas trash bag. This makes this kind of funnier then. He's like, oh yeah, they told us, they predicted all of this. The gods were like, yeah, this is totally gonna happen, and then it happened. Weird.
Yeah,
that's funny. So Odysseus was a real guy, right? Dude,
the Trojan War, like the horse and stuff, that wasn't real. Like the Trojan War was a real event, but the whole horse and stuff wasn't real.
I thought all these like big name people were actual people.
Not as far as I know.
Weird.
Maybe you can find something for like Achilles, but I don't think he's real either.
Huh. All right. I mean, that makes sense, I guess.
Like I'm not sure what the story is for Greek mythology, but some for the kings and queens and some of the warriors in Irish mythology, like it could be based upon somebody that was real. Like we can link it to certain people, but they themselves, like their names and stuff, like they weren't a real person. So I imagine it's similar to in Greek mythology. I'll Google it really quick. I'll see. Was it, because I'm pretty sure, like I'm 99% certain Odysseus wasn't a real person, but maybe there's an argument for Achilles. Yeah, basically what I just said. It just said he could be based upon a mixture of warriors from that time period.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just found Virgil's autobiography.
Yeah, I saw that the other day actually when I was in the bookshop. I was gonna get it, but I was like, do I really want to learn more about this man?
I'm on Cliff Notes. It's a Cliff Notes biography.
He does have a biography though.
No, that's funny. So it's kind of weird. Let's see. Yeah, so he's like a political writer normally.
Yeah. Maybe that would make sense as to why the storyline is kind of bad, because he was used to writing political stuff.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like anyways. So yeah, his dad gives a whole outline about how Caesar is the one true leader, and then he like just kind of leaves the underworld. They're like, okay, thank you for telling that whole story. And then like he leaves the underworld, and I was like, cool. Okay. And that was the end of that reading. Yeah. Not like a good ending, really. Like they're just like, all right, moving on. You're like, okay.
But they were two eventful books, you know.
Yeah.
We had the funeral games in the first one,
Mhm.
and we had going to the underworld in this one.
Yeah.
What was this? Books 5 and 6, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of spoilers for the coming books, but whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
So that's all we have today. Jade, where can the people of the internet find you?
You can find me on aboutabook.podcast on Instagram, and you can find my podcast, Bookish podcast about the history and story behind some famous books, by looking up About a Book on Spotify, iTunes, wherever. And About a Book is one word, so put it all in as one word. And it should pop up.
Excellent. But we will catch you all in the next episode where maybe they'll see sirens. I don't know. They just left this plot hole for us. So we'll find out. But we'll catch you all later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. If you want to find me, I am at Barely Bookish on everything. I'm also on Twitch, and you can get some exclusive episodes and bonus content over on Patreon. You can join for as low as $1 a month. It's all donation based, so you can really just join for whatever you'd like and get some cool content. Or you can, if you want to see my face, hang out with me on Twitch. I do a lot of writing sprints, because I do a lot of freelance work, so I'm over there a whole bunch, and that's the best way to see my face. If you want to, I don't know. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening, and I'll catch you guys next week with more of the Aeneid. Our logo is designed by my little sibling Sarah. Our theme song was by Raphael Crux, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye!